for police departments statewide, and the request here is for another $40 million on top of $10 billion.
Correct. So the amount of state funding is relatively small compared to their total budgets, which are typically funded from local revenue sources.
But as Senator Lara pointed out, that in budget subcommittee, the police chiefs did not even bother to come to make the point as to why they need $40 million on top of $10 billion. Is it uncommon, if not unique, that we provide these sums of money, tens of millions, for a particular entity without asking or requiring report back as to how the money was used? We had this conversation with Senator Nielsen yesterday on higher education issues, that we must have some report back. How is it that this one doesn't?
I think just the way the program was initially was approved, that there was no reporting back. I think there's differences if you're looking across programs statewide, that programs that are operated at the local level that the state is funding or contributing funding to, the state gets varying degrees of information about how the funds are being spent or what the outcomes are. Certainly, it's within the legislature's discretion to require information back on how the funds are spent, or as both houses have done here, to provide the funding, but with certain strings attached to ensure that it's meeting the legislature's priority, as opposed to just being available for whatever local priorities are.
Okay, we're clearly keeping this open. I think we've had a bit of an airing here, and I appreciate everyone bearing with my emotional response to this, but it's sincere. And let me just say, as we move forward, that before I could support 40 million in pots of 20 or otherwise for whatever purposes, I'd like to see some documented need on as to why we need more than 10 billion. What are we not doing that we need? And why is it 40 and not 80 or 100? Because it's such a tiny fraction of the 10 billion we're already doing. This is just unsettling. Page 12, do we have words from our floor yet as to what our needs are there? I think we'll finish this, and then we'll break.
Yeah, we might as well go on.
Okay, so we are nearing completion.
We're prepared to move the Senate revision proposal.
Okay.
Page 12.
Let's give Ms. Bosler an opportunity to give the governor's proposal here, and then we'll take up that motion.
This was our May revision proposal that modified a January proposal to deal with some insolvency issues with the fund that supports the Peace Officer Standards and Training program. In January, we proposed a significant reduction to the state administration part, but after a lot of discussions with Post, the May revision was modified to essentially continue the modest reductions to some of the non-mandated training courses, as well as suspend reimbursement to local law enforcement that backfills officers that are participating in the training. So really, our proposal really maintains the local assistance reductions at a similar level to the current year, and also reduces the state admin at Post by $800,000.
Thank you, Ms. Bosler. So the motion, which would approve the Senate's approval of the governor's proposal to save $800,000, we have a 3-0 vote on the Senate side, and we will keep it open on the Assembly side.
Okay.
Page 13.
We will also accept the Senate proposal. Numbers are so close.
Okay.
So work for warriors.
Very good. Ms. Peters, can you walk us through the Senate proposal?
Sure. The Senate approved $670,000 in Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act discretionary funds for the Work for Warriors program, which is administered by the California Military Department. This is a program that provides, helps match veterans and guardsmen and women with job opportunities. The difference between the houses is not really significant. The dollar funding is roughly the same. And we would just note that this is a priority for both houses of the legislature and it's an appropriate place to exercise some discretion and ensure your priorities are met.
And just noting that the California National Guard and Reserves do suffer high rates of unemployment.
Yes, that's correct. And the program is run by the California National Guard and specifically is targeting employment opportunities for guardsmen and women as well as veterans leaving active duty.
And the $670,000 that the Senate included in its proposal is taken from the current year's budget funding level?
That's correct. In the current year, the state is providing roughly that same amount of funding to this program, and the current year funding source is going away, and this would continue to provide funding from the state for this program.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Bosler.
This wasn't specifically part of our proposal, but I will note that we did allocate $2.7 million from in the WIOA discretionary block grant to veterans grants. That certainly something like Work for Warriors could be a recipient of some of that $2.7 million.
Okay. Less than $10 billion, but we have a motion for the Senate proposal on page 13. 3-0 on the Senate side and 3-0 on the Assembly side.
We want to go back for the
And we will go back to page 12. The motion was for the Senate version. And we have 3-0, 3-0 on page 12 as well as on page 13. Page 14, paid family leave outreach. This was the Assembly's proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ryan Woolsey with the Legislative Analyst's Office. The Assembly plan includes $1 million in special funds for outreach in the paid family leave program, which would be on top of $2.5 million in special funds that were included in the governor's January budget and May revision. The amount that's in the January budget and May revision is consistent with a 3-year paid family leave outreach funding plan that the legislature approved as part of the 2014-15 budget package. We don't have any specific position on this proposal. The additional $1 million in special funds would not have a significant impact on the balance of the disability insurance fund and could allow the Employment Development Department to expand existing outreach efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Woolsey. Ms. Bosler. Yes, sir.
We believe that this proposal is premature. Last year, the Conference Committee did approve $6.5 million for a 3-year pilot program for additional paid family leave outreach. In the current year, there's $1 million to bring a vendor on board. That vendor has been brought up on board to develop a strategy for outreach. The following 2 years were intended to actually implement that outreach, so we do believe that it's premature to add more funding at this time.
This comes out of a special fund, my understanding, and just basically out of our disability account to reach a unique population in terms of family leave. So we'd like to hold it open as we go forward to see how it fits into the budget.
All right. And Mr. Woolsey, might there, as we consider this further, make some sense if we took the Assembly's proposal and added some trailer bill language to allow for additional funding of the $1 million if we subsequently document the need?
In other words, it would be provisional upon identifying a need for the funds. That is a possibility.
Right. Okay. So let's keep that open for now with that possibility.
Okay. But we can accept that trailer bill language, could we? Sure. Yeah.
Chairman, I just would argue we have some metrics, some identifiables that we're accounting them for.
Okay. Sounds good. So we'll work on the trailer bill language that has specifications in it.
All right. So we'll come back. I think we're on the right path.
Yeah, they're grateful. We're agreeable to it.
Page 15 is the Public Employment Relations Board staffing issue, and this is an Assembly proposal.
Nick Schroeder with the Legislative Analyst's Office. Neither the Senate nor the governor had an augmentation for PERB, but the Assembly adopted a $1 million augmentation to address personnel issues related to workload increases. We have no position on this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeder. Ms. Bosler.
We're also supportive of the Senate version here. We think it's a premature request. We don't know exactly what problem is trying to be addressed, but we'd happy to continue to work with folks about what the issue is that they see that needs funded. But
do we know if this is a request of the Public Employment Relations Board?
Mark Tellison, Department of Finance. At this point, it's not, the administration did not, propose any funding for PERB. We have committed to, working with the department to continue to look into this issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it came from the board. I think it came from the rank and file in terms of the backlog that's there and the need for additional staffing to respond to the issues that are before PERB at this time, that there's been a loss in positions, 13 positions they've lost. They've not kept pace with added increase in workload and compromising their ability to meet its mission and providing timely and effective solution to stakeholders in terms of, particularly in the area of collective bargaining and the whole process that's there. It would help support the fair and timely delivery of justice, particularly in a lot of those issues dealing with collective bargaining. And so this is coming from those basically in the trenches who are saying that they don't have enough staff to be able to respond to the issues in a timely fashion. So we probably need to look into that and make sure that we're doing right by them. So they need additional resources according to PERB.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. I am sensitive to the issues you describe. It. This is general fund. Given that we have fairly consistently, maybe almost, I think without exception, relative to general fund, given that we don't know what our revenues are yet. Right. We'll leave this open, but again, very sensitive to the issue. Page 16 is paid sick leave outreach. And if we could first hear about the Assembly's proposal, and then we'll get an update on what has already been provided by the governor. Mr. Wilsey.
Thank you. The Assembly proposal includes $1 million general fund to the Department of Industrial Relations to perform outreach related to paid sick leave as approved in AB 1522, which takes effect this July.
Thank you. Ms. Bosler.
So, yeah, we believe this proposal is premature. At this time, there's no evidence to really suggest that the current marketing for paid sick leave is, ineffective, and ultimately the Department of Industrial Relations as well as the Employment Development Department both provide weekly outreach activities. DIR does have a specific email box for questions specific to the paid sick leave. They get about 40 per day. After the various webinars that they've put on, they've received about 100 email questions per day. They do have dedicated staff to address phone calls associated with it, so we do believe it's premature at this time.
So after the passage and signage of Assemblymember Gonzalez's AB 1522, those are all the steps that the administration took in recognizing that there would be need to communicate with California that this is now law and this benefit is available.
That's correct.
All right.
Were those steps taken, Jeanette, were those steps taken specifically around 1522 or just the normal steps that are taken about sick leave that's there?
So it is a combination of both. They do actually have a dedicated email box specific to questions on AB 1522 that was set up. But in terms of their normal outreach activities, this information is incorporated into those materials.
Do you know what the response has been to that special mailbox or special email in terms of comparison to others?
I don't have any comparisons, but that specific email box has received about 40 questions on average per day. And as mentioned, they have put on, I believe, 3 webinars. They have 3 more anticipated. And after the previous webinars, they have received about 100 emails per day thereafter.
Okay. I think those who are authors of the bill and those who are supporters of it, as expressed to me, their concern, of course, is that we create an opportunity for benefits, then people don't know that they're there. And so if we're constantly doing it with the same population of individuals that we've done them with before, this is a whole new population that's now eligible for sick leave that may not work for them in terms of the notice in the lunchroom and the this and the that and the other kind of traditional things, because generally speaking, it's not there. Sometimes I think things happen here, and because it's a big buzz around the Capitol, we assume it's a buzz all over California, and it really isn't. And so, you go home and people don't know what the heck you're talking about, because it's not that important down there, or at least not at the same level. So I just want to make sure we'll continue to look into this and see. Would love to know what the response has been in terms of how you've changed your policy, what additional material you've put out, and what the response has been in terms of your normal call-ins or webinars or other kinds of things, is whether or not you're reaching that population or just reaching HRs and people like that. So it'd be good to know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. And Mr. Woolsey, could you respond to the administration's efforts to date with regard to communicating with Californians of the fact of this new benefit?
We have spoken with the administration about their past efforts, and that's what we understand them to have done so far. They've also indicated that in the future there may be some additional media outreach, and there will be ongoing meetings with employers throughout the state, which is current practice, which will be funded out of existing resources. With respect to the efficacy of this, it's as the Department of Finance mentioned, it's really difficult to know for certain at this time that there is a problem, but the legislature, of course, could have a priority to get ahead of any potential problem and increase this outreach.
Certainly. And I know every place of employment is required to post any numbers of bits of information. This is now required, and this would be required by an employer to post?
That's correct.
All right.
I'll also add, in addition to that, employers are required to notify all new employees that will be eligible for the paid sick leave at the time of hire, and they're also required to include at the time of every paycheck a notification of the amount of accrued sick leave. So
That is the law.
That is the law.
Okay. Thank you. Colleagues, we have come upon the last page, the last item.
You've been good.
That
See, 35 minutes.
we'll be dealing with today. Given that we will need further briefing, when we complete this item, we're going to adjourn for the day, allowing us to complete our work on the floor. And then tomorrow, conference at 11. And we'll start with general government and transportation.
Sounds good.
And probably go to 2. And then we'll break and come back. So as we take up the last page on 17, for tomorrow, we'll convene again at 11, as we did a little bit later today, 11, and we'll probably go for about 3 hours, go back and do our floor work, and then come back tomorrow afternoon at a time we'll determine by tomorrow morning, and we'll be starting tomorrow with general government and transportation. So civil service change is a big issue, something the governor's been addressing for a while.
Yeah, so for many months now, we've had a large internal group that's meeting with many external stakeholders to address a variety of issues related to reform of the civil service system, and also just the overall hiring system of state government. We really are very focused on planning for the future and making sure that state employment, and especially how you get into state employment, is modernized for the next generation of employees who are much more adept at going online and filling out applications online and finding jobs easily that way. We have thousands and thousands of job classifications, and it can be quite daunting, especially for someone who's never had state employment, to understand how to access that. So that's been an ongoing effort that Secretary Batcher over our government operations agency has been leading, but with the input of many, many people. So we introduced this concept in January, and then in the May revision, we put some finer points on our current proposal. This is by no way a comprehensive proposal. These are just a few small things that we think are modest changes that would help to improve the system. And I'm going to have my colleague Erica Lee go through the proposals we had.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Lee.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. Erica Lee with the Department of Finance. Specifically, we are proposing as part of our full package the elimination of a government code, specifically 12439, and replacing that with a biannual process, which is described in our control section, the amendments to our control section 4.11. And specifically, what we are looking at doing is reconciling departments' spending based on positions and operations, and looking at the appropriate mix of funding between what departments are actually spending on their positions versus what they are spending on their operations side. That's the first part of the proposal. The second part is, as Ms. Bosler stated, amending and eliminating some of the limitations that we have put on departments in regards to hiring processes. So there are several archaic statutes that are imposing restrictions on sort of the overall pool of candidates that departments can hire from, and we're proposing eliminating those. And then the third component of our proposal is the elimination of the use of limited term positions, and instead looking at limited term funding to deal with short-term projects. And I can go into any more detail if you'd like.
Thank you. You may have said it in other words, but in fact, repealing section 12439 would also eliminate the phenomenon of chronically vacant positions.
Yes, so GC 12439 essentially is in place to allow for the sweeping of positions left vacant for 6 or more months. And it's been in place for several years now. And generally what happens is that departments that have left those positions vacant, they're by law, we're supposed to go in and sweep that after 6 months. What we've been finding is, and there was an audit that our department conducted this spring, is of a sampling of about 10 departments, roughly 9 were found to have misapplied or misused the use of GC 12439, and the audit findings recommended that and for a long time now, I would say, going back, giving you a little bit of context, both the Legislative Analyst's Office as well as the Department of Finance have for several years now recommended the elimination of the statute. It no longer meets the original intent, which was to kind of keep track of authorized positions, and instead what we've been finding is that departments, for several years now, we have not been providing them price. So as costs go up, they are expected to absorb that and to be more efficient, to be nimble, and to sort of work with what they have. And what we've been finding is that departments are leaving open these vacant positions in order to fund other responsibilities, other priorities that the legislature has approved them those dollars and those positions for. And so as also a part of the recommendation from our audit report, there was not just, full elimination of it, but a replacement of it with something that has monitors and controls, and hence our proposal to present this biannual reconciliation whereby we have a better sense and can be more transparent with department budgets and how much they're spending for positions and how much they're actually spending on operations, which would include anything from rent, other utilities, paper, contracts, vendors, things like that.
Okay, thank you. You've articulated it well. I think the issue has also received some not insignificant press attention in recent times as well. I think LAO, you probably have no problems with the repeal of section 12439. Can you comment further on the bigger issue of civil service reform, and is this something we need to do in the budget, or might we take a few extra months to really give a serious review to it and maybe take care of it by August?
Nick Schroeder with the LAO. Yes, it's something that is a significant policy change. The civil service is a very complex system, and making any change to it might have implications that we haven't thought of. And so while the administration might have been thinking of this over the past several months, in the legislature, we have not been thinking about this since May, when they submitted the proposals, details. And so the legislature could consider having the administration submit a more comprehensive proposal in January and consider this either in the policy committees or as part of the budget process.
We had a chance to think about this as well and realize from our own staffing that this is a much more complicated issue that obviously has not had all of the parties weigh in on it. We not necessarily heard from labor and a number of other groups concerning this proposal. The information we've gotten is rather complex in terms of what the civil service system looks like, and so to move forward to make this kind of change at this time, we think is slightly premature. We're going to take the Senate version on this, which is no proposal at this time, but we're going to, with the intent to have something by the end of session. So we're instructing our sub-4 group to look into this and during the month of July and to come back with some hopefully additional language so that we can either at some point make a recommendation with regards to how we should move with regards to this. So we're basically taking the Senate language on this with the intent to have something by the end of session concerning this particular situation.
Madam Chair? If I may just
Senator Nelson.
make a note that in just repealing the provision doesn't make a lot of sense. It's that we've not held people accountable over years. So this is not a new issue. It's decades of an issue, and it is complicated. But I certainly concur that time is nigh, but today is not the time.
Yeah, it's not the time to do it. There's no need, there's no question that we need some level of reform, but we can't make it this quickly, and the committees have not adequately discussed it. And it's not been a major item on our radar in the Assembly to basically come to a conclusion that could be far-reaching at this point. So that's why we would take the Senate's recommendation of no proposal at this time, but we will be instructing our sub-4 individuals to work on bringing back some type of language, either a bill, a trailer bill, or something that would then hopefully get that, and that would give an opportunity to have public hearing and discussion concerning the policy.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Mr. Schroeder, for reasons you've already described, you probably support the Senate position?
We would, but we did offer a compromise of
Please.
Recognizing that you want to have forward momentum of improving the civil service, but not sacrificing legislative deliberation. One option would be to repeal the government code section, but to consider the other policy changes at a future date.
All right. And Ms. Bosler, you're certainly welcome to respond.
Just that this is really was just the beginning. We continue to work on a lot of the different items in the civil service reform area, and also just in modernizing our personnel practices. And this is really important to the administration in terms of moving and making sure that we can build and continue to maintain by recruiting more people into state service so that because we have absolutely need to maintain a strong workforce like we have today. So those recruitment and retention efforts, including accessing people who have never worked in state government before, are really important. And we think that it's long overdue, some of the simplification efforts that we're working on. And so it's something we're committed to continue to work on. We, of course, would hope that you could approve the package that we've put forward. We think it's modest, and it is just a first step, but understand if you want to have more conversations.
Sure. Thank you. So we do have a motion by Assemblywoman Weber. We'll take the vote in just a moment, but out of respect for the work that the administration has put into this, and I don't know that we want to pull out Section 12439 on its own. I don't know if there are any unintended consequences of just doing that and not doing anything else at this time. But with the Senate proposal, which is not to move forward at this time, with the express intent from me, and I would think with the full committee, that if the administration is able to get a detailed proposal to us so that we could have policy committee review through the months of the summer, with the potentiality of taking action through by the end of our session in September, that's a possibility. Otherwise, something that we could look at so that you could have a proposal all set to go for the January budget, but allowing for something to be done in the calendar year. All right, so we have the motion 3-0 on the Senate side and 3-0 on the Assembly side. So thank you, committee members and LAO, all of you, and Ms. Bosler and your team as well for all of the work that we've done to date, and we will convene tomorrow morning at 11. And there will be reconciliation so we can catch up on the few actions that we took today. Thank you.